hardwired, not here. What I can do very easily, within that function call, within that simple module, I can say allow reorder, and then I drag the last name above the first name. Now, firstly, it gives me a warning that this particular sequence deviates from the standard tab order behavior of the application. But secondly, I didn't program anything. I just changed the order in this particular instance. However, if I wanted to do something different, set default order, if I wanted to force 100 test cases that hit that interface to change their order, okay? All I need to do is I go to the module definition, actually, and I can jump there, I don't need to search it. Jump to the module definition, and I drag the last name in the module definition above the first name. If I go back to my test case, you will see that it acts now on any reference that uses that interface, always with last name before first name. It's another aspect where you get that dynamic because it's completely separated as a concern. The way you execute has nothing to do with the logic that you apply to your system. So why should we marry it up then? It just creates a nightmare of maintenance. Now that's the story of Wolfgang Platz over the past 15 years, since the dawn of Allianz and a particular challenge that we had to solve that could not be resolved with script-based testing, be it record and replay or be it test automation frameworks. And thereby it's open for questions and answers.
Is this only for text-based applications, or can I also use it for applications that involve videos or photographs, for instance?
So you can do with photos, for example, image comparisons, yes. And we are right now working with MediaCorp here in Singapore. What they want to do is they want to, firstly, they have a multi-tiered architecture. There's an application server. The application server itself has a web service interface in RESTful web services, where you can call from an application, be it on your Android device, be it on your iOS device, be it on a desktop from a browser. They all use the same interface, and you can invoke that API and say, give me blockbusters, give me favorites, give me classics, whatever. Give me paid content TV, give me unpaid content TV. And then what they want to test is obviously there's free content and there's purchased content. So they want to test the scenarios. How does the content get delivered? Because some of the purchased content has requirements for parental guidance. So if you're in the wrong location or wrong age, you won't be able to purchase and you won't be able to stream it either. Right? And therefore, they test all these variances. When they hit the system, meaning the actual device, tablet, smartphone, or streaming, what we will do is we check with them that content is being streamed. But in video content, we don't check actually the actual image, because no technology will be fast enough to do a pixel comparison for that. You know, at what point do you get the snapshot? So what the thinking is, what we do instead is we check that the player is up and running, and we check that video content is being streamed to the player. So in that sense, we can test to a certain extent that video content is being streamed to the person who looks at it, and that it's up and running, it's displaying. What we don't have, and I wouldn't know either, but I'm not the media expert, okay? What we don't have, I wouldn't know how would you validate that what the person actually is seeing is what the content said it was. So if someone labels the content wrongly, so they say, look, this is Top Gear, or this is in maybe a more recent movie, it's Despicable Me, right? But they labeled a video that isn't Despicable Me at all. It's maybe, you know, whatever, a documentary. If they label it wrongly, we would have no clue, to be honest.
Can I run the whole test suite from the command line?
Yes, yes. So you can integrate, it's got a command line shell, you can run everything from the command line, and you can integrate it into continuous delivery or to continuous integration environments. Yes.
And would this work for your Android or iOS applications? Can I use
Yep.
that?
Yep.
And it looks just the same.
It's exactly the same, because there's no difference. What it runs is no difference in how you invoke the run. Okay, as long as the infrastructure is there.
And is this only a Windows application, or do you also have Unix and Mac?
No, so the application itself needs a Windows desktop, okay, to run. You can execute, for example, on Unix, you can execute stuff because we use then the PuTTY engine or a terminal emulator to have a window into the Unix machine and drive the Unix machine. We did this in many cases. Road and Maritime Services in Australia, for example, has that case, or broker services, stock exchanges have that case often, where the actual run happens on Unix machines. So you interface with that through a character terminal. But the desktop for the user, for the end user, is Windows.
Lastly, is this free?
Who would pay a salary, man?
I've got to eat. No, it's not free. But there's something that you might want to look at. We've changed our licensing model. There's a base version, and there's a limited base version that comes free, but without the automation. It gives you the entire framework for test management, test specification, manual test execution and reporting. So it gives you the entire framework, but it doesn't give you the automation. That's our sweet spot. Okay. The computer-aided test. We think that test management, test specification, manual test execution, and reporting is commodity these days. You know, there's not really a lot of rocket science to that, is it? I mean, some are slicker than others, but by and large, there's no dramatic, innovation in that space. But where we come in with innovation is in the model-based test automation and in the computer-aided test design. This is our blood and bread and butter. Bread and butter.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Hi, Alger here. If I'm running a program, a testing program across locations around the world, and some of these sites they're using different tools. One is using HP Quality Center, another one is using Rational ClearQuest. And if I will try to invest in this, and normally for me I do reporting of this task management from different co-locations. Is there a way for this to be interfaced with those things?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it's an open platform, as said, and as such it also provides multiple interfaces. One interface is the command line interface to, for example, just use it out of the box from the command line, either manually to invoke it, or through scheduling software, or through some automated release to build to release processes where you use Jenkins or TeamCity or Hudson or whatever, BuildForge cruise control. The second interface that it has is the interface, it's a .NET API interface to integrate it into the application lifecycle management. So for example, there's an out-of-box integration to ALM or Quality Center. There's an out-of-box integration to Jira as a defect management tool, but we've also integrated it into others such as ClearQuest.
Even with ClearQuest, there is an there's a point-to-point integration out of the box, right? And so when we go into a customer, literally all of them have something from HP. Okay. HP QC is very, very widely spread, as you know. So every customer, literally every customer has that topic. So we have quite some depth integration with QC.
What is the market share currently for this tool? I mean, worldwide and also here in Singapore?
So Singapore, we only recently started. We've been in Singapore for about 12 months. We have very good tractions in the financial industry because that's what we targeted. We are quite happy to provide you a reference, for example, with Singapore Stock Exchange, The head of QA is extremely pleased about the results that they've seen only after 2.5 months implementation. They used traditional script-based testing before, and some of our competitors in that space. They're happy to talk about the experience. They're having both spaces. The penetration and our market share varies a little bit between the major geographies. The reason being is we originate out of Europe. We have very high penetration. We are market leader in Austria. We are second in Switzerland. We are second or third in Germany, around that. Second in Germany. So there's high penetration, high market share. We are third in Australia. We are in New Zealand, catching up quickly now. But Singapore, we've only started recently to provide a local presence. So we have a number of clients, but I wouldn't be able to tell you by statistics how we compare to the total usage.
But I would suggest in the next 12 months, these things take time to bite, but we've been coming in 12 months, and that I think we'll start to see some real momentum being gained over the next 12 months. So people are now starting to see the value locally, and some local case studies now are all important. So we're seeing that, which is exciting.
But we have, if needed, we can provide not only case studies. There's case studies that you can download from our webpage. The case studies also include real facts. It's not just rah-rah and fluffy statements. It's actually statistics about the cost of automation, the cost of testing, and the time of testing and the quality of testing before and after implementations. They give you also comparisons sometimes to what the existing environment was and what it is now. And in the case studies, there's also a business case in there published by the various customers, what the spend was, what the time to implement was, what the team setup was, what the scope was of the application that they automated, and what the benefits are and when the break even kicks in.
Okay. Thank you.
We can also provide references.
We have case study for ETL testing as well. Extract, transform, and loading.
Yes.
Because most of my work involves ETL processing. Aside from data warehousing, we also test for UI, Dick View. So what I've seen from the presentation is mostly UI. Do you deal with ETL?
Absolutely. We have a solution for business intelligence and data warehouse testing, and Wolfgang is the expert who can respond to that if you want.
Yes, thanks, Dominik. Yeah, that's been some kind of a hobby for me for the last couple of years. So we have done a very deep research in the market to find out if there is good tools here for data warehouse and BI testing, and the results have been rather disappointing, right? What you see here is some schedulers out there for SQL queries. That's more or less it. What we have come up with is twofold. First of all, we make use of our object-oriented structures and with a specific SQL engine, an SQL database engine, to help you create modular architectures for SQL statements for the vital checks of your database. But this is not where we stop. We have come up with a specific horizontal data profiling engine. We call it Tosca IQ. It's a query engine. It's fundamentally new. You won't see this. Gartner has said, hey, you guys need to have a patent on that, so go ahead. So they were really astonished by this. And we have already implemented that successfully in the Swiss market now. And have a couple of interests in the financial industry, and are very curious to see other customers following. Actually, one of the reasons for me being here for the next 10 days is to visit 5 customers who have specific interest in that topic. So
the biggest credit card issuer in the market is going to talk about this topic tomorrow.
If you know who that is. So if there is particular interest, we're more than happy to provide data on this. and we will really walk through the different levels of data warehouse BI checking and see and get you familiar with what is the idea, why is it different, why does it work, what can you get out of it.
And also being mindful and respective of the different stages from extract to transform.
Yeah. ETL is just one aspect, right?
Yeah, but is it already available?
Yes, it's in the market. It's available in the market. We have implemented that already successfully. It's not a project. It's here.
And do you use it across different types of platforms like Oracle, SQL? Is it
today we support Teradata, Oracle, SQL Server, and DB2.
What was yours among the mix? Was your platform among the mix?
Yeah, Oracle is good.
Oracle is good?
Yeah.
All right, that's good. So you can, if you want it, take it offline with Wolfram, get more depth on that. It's if there was interest, we can come back to a specific BI, but that in itself is a topic that takes 45 minutes to walk you through that properly.
How did you do that in 45 minutes? It always takes me 90 minutes to do it.
But here's the new challenge.
As you said, this tool is being used for Swift and fixed protocol testing, right? So how do you do that? Because we face challenges in using UDP to drive the GUI and Verifix to test the things. If you have a single platform which can be used for both testing, that would be very useful. So how do you use this tool to do fixed testing, asset testing, message testing, messaging, and
Okay, so with fix, you mean the fixed protocol?
yeah, fixed.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I draw a quick. I will use this in the front. I draw a quick image of Tosca's architecture that probably then illustrates better why it can work and how it works, how it approaches the particular challenges. Because once you understand the layered architecture of Tosca, then you probably better understand how it can deliver on its promise as well. You can simply push, or if that doesn't help, then okay. Which color would be best?
Black.
Black, probably, right? I'll start off with black. If you can't see it in the back, tell me, then I'll use a different marker. Okay. A very high level diagram of Tosca. Okay. This is the desktop. That's what you see. This is what you saw today. Okay, the interface of Tosca, where you can create all these assets, modules and test cases and test data and execution lists and all of that. Your interface. What you can't see underneath is a couple of things. Firstly, obviously, there's somewhere a database where you can safeguard your data. You don't need to. You can go on a file-based system where you can use the SQLite database that comes shipped with the product. But you can nominate one of the existing database servers, Oracle, IBM DB2, Microsoft SQL Server, where your organization already has policies for restore and backup, okay, or backup and restore. So you benefit from this policy straight away because they're implemented already. Or you say, give me an empty database schema on that particular server. And then you have a common repository where you can work in a team. We didn't show anything about the version control. There's object version control. There's team set up for proper check-in, check-out, so that you don't overwrite each other's changes and all of that. So that's all collaboration. There's a whole range of features for collaboration in teams, even if they are distributed in different locations. Okay. And that's for the data. Storing and safeguarding your data. Anything that you create. Therefore, you can migrate this from one database to another. You can migrate it, you can export it, you can import it into another workspace. There's no limitation as such. What you also can't see is underneath the hood, very much like when you look at a car, unless you open the bonnet, you would not know. But you probably expect, because we all know cars, but you don't see the engine. Okay? So there's something like the bonnet, and that's what we call a base engine. And the base engine is responsible. Its primary task is to separate the test logic, which is in plain English as such, from the automation logic. Okay? Which is pure technical information. That's machine-to-machine communication. Okay? This is how different machines talk to each other through a particular technology, syntax. So that's all technology. Okay? Now underneath the base engine, so this is that stuff that does that separation of concerns. Okay? This is kind of this middle layer. At some point, obviously, rubber needs to hit the road. At some point, we've got to talk Java, we've got to talk HTML, we've got to talk .NET, we've got to talk Fix, we've got to talk another service protocol, Swift, or we've got to talk XML, or we've got to talk web services. We might even need to stop some services. Okay. So what is underneath the hood here are technology connectors. There is one, for example, for HTML. There's one for, I use those that we use today. There's one for web services. There's one for Java. There's 25 technology adapters for all these different technologies. So there's one for Fix as an example. Well, there isn't right now, but there could be one. There is one for Swift. Okay. Now that technology adapter knows how to talk to that particular protocol. Now let me make here an analogy. Let's assume that this desktop is not a desktop, but it's a dashboard. And it's a car. You have here a steering wheel, Maudi, and you have an accelerator, a brake, and a clutch. And you have a speedometer, and you have a rev count, and you have a handbrake. And you have a gear lever. Okay? So that's the interface of a car. Who has a driver's license? A couple of people. All right. When you made your driver's license, what did you make your driver's license on? Petrol or diesel or?
Petrol.
Petrol. Okay. So here was a car. When Tim did his driver's license, there was a car that was powered by petrol. Okay. Let's say he goes to Singapore. Understands cars are they are prohibitively expensive. The registration and the car. So not that many people actually own cars, which I think is a good idea in a city like Singapore, because you would be drowning in traffic anyway. But taxis are cheap compared to other places, which is very good. Sydney should look at that concept, I tell you. And let's say, because Tim made his driver license with a petrol car, maybe even bought a petrol car and is driving a petrol car because he's a New Zealander, so he's a petrol head. He loves V8 engines with lots of power. But here in Singapore, Hertz or Avis does not have any petrol cars. They only have diesel engines, diesel cars. Could he drive that car? Sure he can. He goes to Hertz and he drives the same car powered by a diesel engine. Okay? Because he has one common interface, how he can drive the car. It hasn't changed the steering wheel, it hasn't changed the accelerator, clutch and brake, and anything else. So he drives that diesel car. Now let's assume, however, he is not happy with the performance. He thinks it's crap performance. So he takes it to a garage and says, currently it's got only 200 horsepower. I want 500 horsepower out of this engine. And he's not a technician, so he doesn't do the tuning, but he takes it to a garage. And let's say this guy who looks at this diesel engine to tunes starts to look for sparking plugs. What would you do? Get the heck out there. He's never going to tune your car because diesel engines don't need sparking plugs. It's a combustion engine, very much like a petrol engine, but it's got a low flammable point and it will combust purely through compression. Okay? That's the analogy. We all can drive if it's powered by gas, diesel or petrol. We don't need to know. We need to know that we fill the right fuel. But we don't need to know the inner workings of the engine. Okay? We can still drive it and use it. In that analogy, Tosca is exactly the same. For those engines that exist and work, you don't need to know the inner workings. You don't need. Did you need to know how whistles files are written and how they are? You know, what's their syntax? No. You scan it. You get a module. It's got a defined interface. Here's a credit card number. This is the result. Use it. Do you need to know how HTML works? No, you don't. You scan the web page. You get a module, and it works. However, there is cases where you do, this is what I said earlier, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to sell you snake oil, this is not code-free necessarily, okay? It is code-free up here. But if you hit, for example, a system that we don't have a connector for, small talk, well, you know what, then you need to code that connector and plug and play it into it. If you, for example, in HTML, I'll give you an example, standard HTML we support out of the box because there's a standard that we can comply to. So we can talk standard HTML. When Google came around and they defined their Google Web Toolkit, okay, they did something very fancy. For some I have an explanation, for other stuff I don't. And I'll give you an example. In plain HTML, when you look at the table with columns and rows, there actually is an HTML table tag. So you can identify it by the table tag, and underneath it's got table rows and it's got table cells. It's a standard protocol. Now, Google, for whatever reason, I don't know what these guys smoked when they did it, but they must have done something. When you look at the Google Web Toolkit table, this is not a table anymore. It's a div container. Okay, what you will see is there's a div is a generic HTML element without any typification. Otherwise, then it's a generic HTML element. There's a div, and there's a div, and there's a div, and there's divs, and there's many, many divs. Okay, and they're just arranged in a kind of a tree. Now, if you had a table that is 10 columns with 10 rows, then in Google Web Toolkit what you find is not a single table as an object that you can interact with. What you find is a tree of divs, where there's one div for the table as itself, as a container. Okay? Then there's one div for each and every row, right? And there's then one div for each and every cell in the row. So if we had 10 rows and then we have 10 cells in each and every row, what we would find is we would find a hierarchy of 10, where we have 10 divs embedded in the second layer and we have 10 divs embedded in the first layer. So how many divs would we have? 111 divs. One is the container, 10 for each and every row, and 10 for each and every cell in each and every row.
So 101, right?
Oh. You have one for the table container.
Yes.
Then you have one for each and every row.
Yes.
And then you have 100 for the 100 cells.
Right. 111.
Okay, it's 111.
True.
Now, if you say you, for example, identify the second column in the second row, which div would it be? 1 the container. 1 for the first row is 2. Plus 10 cells in the first row is 12. Plus 1 for the second row is 13. Plus 2 second cell in the second row is 15. So what we know is diff 15 represents cell 2 in second row. What if they change the layout? What if they change the data? What happens to your diff structure? Well, you know what? Your 15 diff is not what you're looking for anymore. It's something, but it's certainly not what you wanted to have. You cannot automate this reliably unless you convert the diff structure back into a table at runtime. So whenever it hits that diff structure, you say, that's good. I take you and I map you back to a table. And now I can steer it reliably because I only described the table definition. Since it's mapped at runtime, the logic that I apply to it, that I'm looking for a particular content, still applies, regardless of the layout. Now, that doesn't come out of the box necessarily. Today it is, but we hit it the first time as well when we saw a Google Web Toolkit implementation. All you need to do is extend this adapter. You tell the connector when you hit a diff structure that looks like a tree and has a consistent pattern, that it's 3 layers, it has 1 outer, it has a number of inner, and the 3rd layer is always the same amount, then you can safely assume it's probably a Google Web Toolkit container for a table. And then you explain that to the connector, which takes about a half. This is where someone needs to understand HTML, okay? Because otherwise you wouldn't know. But the person who tunes the engine, like the mechanic who tunes diesel engines or petrol engines, we don't need to know, we can drive. Someone needs to understand HTML in this case. They can then twist and tweak. This takes about half an hour to fix that. Now, any one of us automating any Google Web Toolkit application implemented by any team, we don't care anymore. We drive it off the car. We only make 1 license for Tosca or 1 experience how we use it. It's done, dusted. Okay? Separation of concerns.
The great thing about this, what Dominik has explained right now, is that we have added a little feature to that you can do this via drag and drop. You don't have to program that anymore. So you can, via drag and drop, assign the table to a certain diff layer, assign the row to a certain diff layer, and the cells to a certain diff layer. And it's done. So that's very new. But did this really answer your question about Verifix? Not really, huh?
Yes, because likely other Windows controls, right? You have predefined Windows controls stored in the task code. In the same way, for Fix, right, we have hundreds of messages with a lot of fields for different kinds of asset class. So if we have those things predefined, right, it would make our life easier instead of we have to define our own message and do all the codings, right? You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. So when we talk about the Fix protocol, similar to the Swift protocol, right? You have predefined messages, and these predefined messages have structures. As Dominik already explained, for Swift we have taken the most popular of them, and they are here and ready to use in Tosca. All the 101 series, 101, 103, 5, 6, 7, blah blah blah. You know this, right? For the Fix protocol, we have been actually even talking to Verifix, because you mentioned these guys, and Verifix they would provide some API where you then can interact and do some fixed messages. But when we had to see the value that this API brings, we see that you can directly hop on the Fix protocol. You don't need to use this interface. What we do not have out of the box is all the variety of messages, right? But to set them up is very easily done. What you would just need to do is you project these fixed messages into Tosca. We would need to show you how you do that. It's not a hard thing. And then you provide that as an infrastructure to all your users. For instance, if you have like 20 different fixed messages that you use, it would take you about let's say 2 days to do that. That's it. And you remember the web services engine that you've seen, right? There is something very new that we're going to present with the next version of Tosca. That is that you can hide all the technical infrastructure, right? So if you remember that, you saw there was some body envelope stuff, and there was some communicate and body envelope and blah, blah, blah. The net content of the example that we have seen before was just credit card number in and verification message out, right? What we now offer with the new version of Tosca is that you can hide all the technical stuff. You can reduce that just to the business layer, right? So then, with these two steps done, provide the message and provide this abstraction layer, you can shift this package to any business user. Any business user. They do not need to know anything about web services anymore, right? They do not need to know anything about the internal structure of this fixed segments. Okay? But would be for sure worth to take a little bit of a deeper step into how you do it and how fast and easy it is. Okay.
Thank you. Is that the answer? Any other questions? Yes, please.
As we see that like it's functional based, then we have a feature for non-functional things like browser compatibility, security. Do we have any feature in this?
No.
But
security testing, I've worked in security testing for a little while, almost 12 months with IBM when they acquired Watchfire. Security testing is a discipline in its own right. You've got to really know what security testing is about, how to find the loopholes, how to prevent them. So, Wolfgang, you can respond because I'm not as close to the roadmap as you are. Currently, we don't have any capability.
No, we're not going to bring security testing in there, right? What we are planning on bringing there is load, for a very simple reason, because you've seen our non-UI engine, and load generation via non-UI is very easily done. When you do it via the UI, you would need to take the HTTP connection, and you would need to duplicate and multiply that, like all the other tools do that are here for free, like Gmeter and all that stuff. You're probably familiar with that. So we thought, that's not going to be the field of interest where we're going to go, because there's sufficient free tools. But when it comes to load generation via higher protocols, so for instance web services or Swift or whatever this is, then we can provide a unique differentiation, and that's what we're going to introduce in the tool.
Why I'm asking is like as the testing front, the expectation is I need to do functional testing as well as non-functional testing. Let's say browser compatible for UI, as well as the performance, load, and then security. Okay, but I have to think about different tool and then different technology to be used. I have to train my people to work on the different technology and then to get the results. Whereas when I run it, let's say we have ran for 6 records for different costs. The same way, I can run for 1,000 the single stretch. I can get performance as well, that security, as well as browser compatibility. I can make it in a single product. Is that possible? Is that possible to do?
In principle, it's possible. As said, load testing is not too hard to add. It's just a matter of does it justify the implementation and the effort and the gains that you get? As said, security testing, when I work with security testing, is a very different discipline, and you think about very different things. You're not doing the same functional tests. There's no reuse really for the functional tests that you've built for functional testing. Because what you do is, you, for example, enter an entry point where you add normal information, let's say a brand, as you've seen earlier, or a make. What you actually enter is SQL statements that use cross-site scripting to bypass the security, to inject data into the system where you potentially inject your own username and password so that you get a login. It's such a highly specialized discipline that but I'm not the product owner.
But
I think you target a very different audience from functional testing.
sorry.
I can differentiate that functional than non-functional, but the thing is, the requirement is this.
Oh, I agree.
So that is the requirement for the business, for the company.
There's more. Like if you look at the FERPS model for classifying requirements, you have actually functional testing, you have performance, you have reliability, you have usability, you have supportability. There's a whole range of tests that you need to cover.
Now you see that, for example, like so PY is one of the tool that it supports load testing as well. Whereas there is main function to the functional testing as well as the service-based testing. They are providing load testing, but we are not using that one. Okay, so only we are focusing on that particular functionality. Okay, so but my concern is like is that possible to make it? Per se, when I log in, okay, I can test functional, non-functional, at the same time the security, whether it is invalid or something like SQL injection. Okay, when I'm making it, anyway, that the same functionality I will be doing it for SQL injection.
We had a guy, Chris Rolls. I can see if you give me your business card, I link him up with you. He did it. So he used SQL injections at the Ministry of Social Development as an example to use Tosca to inject it. And to promote the securities, but it's nothing that is out of the box. It was a bespoke implementation because he knew how it works and how the injections run and what he needed to do. He used Tosca to actually marry it up and fine. So, of course, it's possible. The question is it the right solution for the right problem? And what are the benefits of integrating? But I agree. Yeah.
And then from the testing front, as a manual as well as automation, from my experience, I would see that this product is fulfilling like QTP, so Selenium, so UI, then other the load is not there. But now I could see that whatever we are not able to do it in QTP, it is fulfilling it. It is more user friendly. So I don't know about that, whether it can be a freeware for us to work on for like 30 days valuation.
You can certainly take it off and we can talk about it.
A trial version.
Yeah, trial version.
Yeah.
Trial version.
But I'm happy to hear it appeals to your heart.
Okay.
Your experience.
No, I worked on the QTP, Selenium, and then now NUnit, and then so VI Pro. So I could see that those features is here.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone. I'm just conscious it's getting quite late now, so we'll maybe say it's the official end of night, but of course we'll be around, so if you do have further questions for Dominik and Wolfgang, we'll be around for a while to answer those questions, or obviously you can give us business cards and we can respond over email going forward. So I'd just like to say thank you very much to Dominik for his presentation tonight. Thank you all for attending, and if you could, if anything that Dominik's mentioned tonight you'd like to learn more about maybe in another session, please make a note of it on the feedback forms, or even aside from the Tosca itself, any other test topics for future forums, also please make a note of those. So yeah, thank you very much for attending. So on behalf of the testing consultancy, that's Mike, AJ, Melissa, myself, and our business partners Tricentis, Wolfgang and Dominik, thank you for attending, and hopefully we'll see you at future forum events. Thank you.